didn't want me to go into the service. I had spoken with her about it and said, if anything goes wrong, I'm gonna have to go into the service. I told her that. If anything goes wrong, if you pass away, I'm gonna have to go into the service because as it is, I can't take care of myself normally in the civilian world.
William is an amazing kid. The more time I got to spend with him, the more textured and fascinating his thoughts became. He has a way of looking at situations and speaking so bluntly, and I find it very endearing, and I just wanted to make sure it was a quality that would survive the military.
Mm-hmm. I suspect it will. I suspect it will. I don't see him as a lifer. I may be wrong, but lifer, of course, being someone who stays in for at least 20 years.
If you join the military now, you are not defending the United States of America. You are helping certain policymakers pursue an imperial agenda.
Now, every time we have shown the film to military audiences, that is the most contentious comment in the film. We've had soldiers of all kinds take great issue with what Karen just said about her unwillingness to send her own children into battle today.
I believe Congressman Murtha said the same thing. And Congressman Murtha comes from a position of responsibility and stature that tops even Karen's. I'm not comfortable with that comment either, but I'm perhaps even more uncomfortable with the fact that I understand why both of them made it.
And yet this chamber is, for the most part, ominously, dreadfully silent. Oh, you can hear a pin drop. Listen.
You know, the question of where Congress was in the lead up to war and why there was so little resistance offered by the members of Congress, it really goes back to Eisenhower's warning and that removal of the word congressional. Because at the end of the day, Eisenhower was aware that Congress is a crucial part of the apparatus that leads a country to war, and that without Congress, you can't get approval for war. And it ultimately falls to Congress to ask the tough questions and to do the heavy lifting of exerting democracy, exerting a pressure on the impulse toward war that purifies it and makes sure that we never go to war frivolously.
You know, I believe that what you've just said is the crux of the problem. We have a branch of government that doesn't understand that it's separate and equal, underline equal, and that it has a responsibility towards war, conflict, foreign policy, and all other matters of national security.
And yet there is pressure. I feel like I'm always the person defending the Congress people and defending the individuals in the system, but the system seems to be driven toward war, and it's hard to resist it.
Level of discussion to this rush for war.
Mr. Vice President, do you think the American people are prepared for a long, costly, and bloody battle?
I don't think it's likely to unfold that way, Tim, because I really do believe we will be greeted as liberators.
I wish we could play that video back to him repeatedly and other videos.
Why?
Because I cannot believe that he didn't entertain, at least, and that seems to be his implication, that there were other alternative possibilities. Every military officer knows, when he's a lieutenant, he knows, to always entertain other possibilities.
And what's fascinating is that the ideas promoted by those who advocated the war, that it would be over quickly, that it would be a single strike. That's why we spoke to the pilots. They were the tip of that spear. They were the people entrusted to carry out the single strike that would overturn the country and fulfill this dream that you could just revolutionize Iraq overnight by dropping a bomb.
Almost as if we were trying to prove a point with regard to military technology and how finessable it had become and how powerful it had become, rather than accomplish the mission.
Let them rip. You can hear those air raid sirens howling.
This was an extraordinary day. I remember when the bombs started to fall, I was in California at an event where Elvis Costello was playing, and while the bombs were falling, he was playing What's So Funny About Peace, Love, and Understanding, and there were images on a TV nearby of this shock and awe unfolding. And it was such an extremely powerful moment in my life. I hadn't experienced war or that kind of emotional crisis about war before.
This brought back to me the vivid image of Panama in Operation Just Cause, because we used F-117s and 2,000-pound bombs there too, and they missed their target. And Michael Gordon from the New York Times had to go down and stand in the center of the crater and measure the distance from the target to the crater before the Chief of Staff of the Air Force was convinced his airplanes had missed.
It's almost as if there was in this war a kind of dangerous illusion that you could have a surgical war, that technology would make a new kind of war possible. And I get the sense that a lot of military people, and tell me if I'm wrong about this, were trying to tell the administration this in advance, that war is messy, war is bloody, it's not push button.
Absolutely. There is no precision to war. It's a mess. It's chaos. Bruce Clark used to say, General Bruce Clark in World War II used to say that the business of a lieutenant or a captain in war is to keep the confusion from becoming disorganized. That's a good description.
Headquarters was successful. We have photographs of what took place.
And this is ludicrous. This is risible that he would stand up there and say that we have photographs of what took place. And this is just like Panama, a repeat of Panama, where Chairman Powell, then General Colin Powell, chairman, had to call a commander in Panama and say, stop saying what you're saying. We missed. Instead of obfuscating and hiding it and saying that we got everything.
I think I was reading something about the bombing in Iraq, and I get this email to Major Thomas V. Johnson from Lieutenant Commander Stephen Franzoni, the private to the corporal to the captain to this, all. It must have been
What was fascinating for me in talking to Wilton was the excitement that he felt. I mean, Wilton loves the services. Wilton was a soldier. He is a committed patriot. I think at that moment, he was looking for a rock in a storm. He had lost his son, and reaching out to the military services was extremely important to him. He got so excited at it, and in a way, that excitement, of course, precedes his learning that there was much more at stake, and that in many ways, the fundamental ideas that he was told by the president about why he should write his son's name on a bomb were flawed. And yet he takes great pride in the interaction at this point that he's having with the military, who are helping him do what he most wants to do in the world, which is to memorialize his son Jason.
Picture of a bomb, and then a close-up of the same bomb, and on the side of it, in loving memory of Jason Sexton.
You know, there's another aspect of it, too, that came to me when I was watching this the second or third time, and that was that there was a philosopher somewhere back there who said revenge is probably really the less sweet of all human motivations, and it's not very satisfying.
Being used today have a degree of precision that no one ever dreamt of in a prior conflict.
I thought this gentleman was so brilliant because there couldn't be a better summation of what's wrong with precision guidance than given by that Iraqi gentleman who just asks if it bombs the house next door, is it smart?
A precision-guided 500-pound bomb, 2,000-pound bomb is a misnomer. Yes, it may go to its target with almost 99% accuracy, but in that 1% might be 30 or 40 dead civilians. So to say that it negates collateral damage is just an outright falsehood.
Hasn't had that experience.
Now, the military-industrial complex has handily provided these guys with all sorts of weapons and basically a level of technical arrogance that we can go do anything.
Here, I think Chuck Spinney taught me a great deal about one component of the military-industrial complex, which is sort of, if you build it, they will come. If you build a huge military, it'll become too easy to use and too easy to go wrong.
I think that's certainly a component of decision-making about using it, yes. If it's there, Madeleine Albright summed it up in that moment that gave Colin Powell so much pique. She said, if this military is so fine, how come I can't use it?
الجثث اللي رأيتها يعني 90% هي مدنية.
Megan Welsh, who filmed the material in the film in Iraq, she had a very long interview with this gentleman who runs the Baghdad morgue. And what was most amazing to me is here's a man who witnesses death every single day. He buries people every day, he embalms them, etc. And yet in the middle of the interview, he literally broke down in tears because his sense that there was such a disproportionate civilian cost to the war, especially a war that had been pitched as a war that would be so surgical and so clean.